That being said, John, let's roll. You might have noticed Tinworks art before you knew about Tinworks art. You may have seen Laley Long Soldier's lightbox sculpture, I Don't Trust Nobody But the Land, while you were sipping your coffee at Treeline on Wallace and wondering what it was doing there. It marks a place where art meets the American West. Tinworks is a nonprofit art space right here in Bozeman's northeast neighborhood with a mission to connect artists and audiences in meaningful ways. We show art inside this former tin manufacturing warehouse, a former pig barn, and also in this 1-acre field behind the Misco Mill where last year we planted a wheat field as a work of art. An important aspect of Tinworks exhibitions and programs is to provide a fresh perspective of what art means in this place, in this time, and to help us connect to one another in our Bozeman community and across the region. Tinworks is open seasonally through June through October, and is always free to visit. Our season exhibition, Akin to Clay, celebrates the remarkable legacy of clay in Montana, exploring shared histories and creative affinities. At the heart of the exhibition is the work of Francis Senska, a beloved Bozeman artist and teacher who founded the ceramics department at MSU, nurturing generations of artists, including the famous Peter Volkus and Rudy Audio. I imagine many of you in our audience have in your kitchens or seen in your neighbors' kitchens Senska's distinctive double-spouted wine sets, always with an odd number of cups. The fascinating duality of this object mirrors the duality in Senska's life as teacher and student, digging wild clay and building her own kilns. The exhibition will focus on Senska's wine sets and her famed partridges, which serves multiple uses as calling cards, glaze tests, and maximizing the space in the kiln during firing. Senska recalled that people would mention she held her hands like her famous student Volkus. She would correct them, explaining that he held his hands like her, and she held her hands like Margaret Wildenhain. Wildenhain was the first female master potter of the Bauhaus, the influential German design movement and art school which ran from 1919 to 1933, known for integrating art, craft, and technology. Wildenhain fled the Nazis twice, ending up in Northern California, where she established an important pottery and trained Senska. Here you see one of Wildenhain's own double-spouted pots, which echo the form for which Senska is known. Wildenhain was a famously exacting student who required her students to repeat forms endlessly until they achieved perfection. She was a fierce protector of the land and thought everyone should give their life completely over to their art. Here we see one of Wildenhain's face jugs, a form that has been universal throughout cultures and earthen makers. The face jug makes an important appearance by another artist in Akin to Clay, Gabrielle Chaile, who explores the genealogy of form, the idea that forms repeat throughout the history of visual culture, taking on new significance in each context. Both Senska and Wildenhain were involved early on in the establishment of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts in Helena. Senska helping to transform it in 1951 from a brickyard to what is today a renowned residency, and Wildenhain among the first masters to teach workshops at the Bray. I learned about the Bray from Theaster Gates, who is in residence there in 2021. Theaster is a multidisciplinary Chicago-based artist who makes socially engaged work incorporating found materials, performance, and archival research exploring themes of community and urban renewal, though he describes himself in his heart as a potter. Gates's ceramics works draw on different lineages, including Japanese techniques, where he was formally trained, African-American pottery from the 19th century, and the radical work of the artists in the 60s and 70s who transformed ceramics, including the aforementioned Volkus, to whom Gates pays homage in this work titled Volkus's Ghost. At the Bray, Gates filmed a clay sermon. Here is Gates in his studio singing with his band, the Black Monks. Gates describes this video as using the black pulpit vernacular to sermonize the many associations evoked by artists using clay. He relates his experience as a black potter looking for ancestral makers and highlights the work of David Drake. Drake, also known as Dave the Potter, was an enslaved man in Edgefield, South Carolina, who produced coil-formed jugs and storage jars of tremendous size. Drake remarkably signed his name to dozens of his works and inscribed verse, his own or biblical references, on their surfaces at a time when it was illegal for enslaved people to be literate. Here you can read the rhyming verse, "When you fill the jar with pork or beef, Scott will be there to get a piece." Signed Dave and dated 1858. Though art historians have explored Dave's production, Theaster is the first artist to reinterpret his work to a broader set of concerns, including craft, creativity, and the act of resistance. The Argentinian artist Gabriel Chaile also makes earthen vessels as an act of resistance and creativity. His enormous works, this one standing over 15 feet tall, are made of adobe and often reference his family members and indigenous ancestors from his home of Tucumán who endured extreme poverty and political unrest. Community and collaboration are important elements of Chale's work, often expressed through communal experiences of cooking and food. From mid-May through June, Chale will be on site at Tinworks creating one of his massive adobe vessels and also making a new work in the form of a sculptural wood-burning oven. Our Bozeman community will be invited to participate in the artwork throughout the summer by baking bread in Chale's oven from flour harvested last fall from ecological artist Agnes Dennis's wheat field, an inspiration. You may remember that after last year's harvest, Wild Crumb baked bread from the wheat field as part of the art, and this year, our community will have the chance. Dennis's wheat field was a place of engagement, joy, connection, and celebration for our community. This summer, she will continue her ecological engagement with Tinworks by planting sunflowers in the former wheat field for their ability to rejuvenate the soil. In addition to the artists described tonight, Tinworks announces an open call for the Montana clay community to submit work throughout the summer for inclusion in akin to clay. The invitation to share vessels is an homage to the joyful accumulation of ceramics pictured here in the Potter's Shrine and Boneyard at the Bray, which next year celebrates 75 years of a kinship through clay.